How you doing, guys? Today we are continuing efforts on the muffler and exhaust system for the 857. As you can see, I tack welded the front of the muffler in place. I also tack welded the back of the muffler in place. I made this fitting right here out of a piece of electrical conduit. I just heated it up with a torch, and then I had like a little piece of pipe that I stretched it over. So that way this, which I'm going to use as the actual straight pieces of the exhaust, slides in real nice. I made a couple little slits with my die grinder, so that way when I put a exhaust clamp on it and just tighten it down a little bit, it'll just snug it up. But I'm not going to crank it down ridiculously tight, so that way if I ever have to get that pipe out, I can. And the other thing I picked up are these Kohler 90-degree bends, which I'm actually going to use to transition the pipe from the motor to the muffler. They are essentially the same diameter as the piece of pipe that I have. So when I weld it together, weld the elbow to the straight pipes, that is, I will knock down the welds, so hopefully it'll look like one continuous piece of pipe. Now, there was a little bit of an issue transitioning the pipe from the cast iron manifold from the motor to the pipe. That necessitated that I make an adapter, okay, to go from the diameter, the outside diameter of the exhaust manifold to a inner diameter of the pipe, so it would slide on real nice. So again, I took another piece of electrical conduit and I had to make a die to stretch it. And what I used was, I had this piece of, this was actually one piece right here. I had a piece of stainless steel pipe. I took some measurements, took it over to my buddy's shop, turned it on the lathe, so it was about 5 thousandths larger than the exhaust manifold. So that way when I heated up the conduit pipe cherry hot, I could put it in my Tack press and then press it over the die and then stretch the metal that way. The only problem is it like freaking fuse welded itself to the stainless steel pipe. And this pipe used to be the same as this one. About the same length as in height. Nice, perfectly round. Well, as you can tell, this thing went through the war. Because when I pressed that red hot conduit pipe onto it, it like shrunk and fuse welded itself to this. I mean, it was just a total disaster in reference to trying to get this thing to work. Ultimately, it did work, but as you can see, I really had to beat the crud out of this in order to get it off. And as you can tell, I have a brand new piece of plywood on my workbench because I proceeded to take my sledgehammer and put a huge hole in the original deck of my workbench. It slipped when I was trying to pound that thing off and put a hole like right here. So I had to fix that. Ultimately, it all kind of worked out. I think the adapter looks real nice. I mean, it's going to look real clean. Again, I'll put an exhaust clamp on this just to snug it up to keep it tight. You can see I have one of the 90-degree bends right here. This will get welded, and then I'll blend it so it doesn't look, it'll look as natural as one pipe as I possibly can. Then the pipe will, what I'm thinking, I'll back up here, is I'll have a pipe that goes down to about this position here. Then there'll be another 90-degree bend, which will go underneath the tractor. Then there'll be another 90-degree bend, and that will aim it and shoot it into the muffler. I think once it gets all together, we grind all the welds and everything, make it look real nice and smooth. So it looks like one continuous pipe out of the motor, underneath, and then in. I'm going to be working on that right now. So I'm going to go start tack welding some things together, do some lining up and cutting some pipe. Okay, with a little bit of tack welding here and there, I have started to lay out the exhaust pipe. As you can tell, the muffler is back in place. I do temporarily just have one of the elbows shoved into the inlet so that way I can see where the height of the pipe is, or where the pipe is actually going to go out. I did tack weld the adapter to the first elbow, and then what I did next is I cut a piece of pipe in order to see where my second elbow is going to fall into place. And as you could tell, if we look at it from this view, we are not lining up. Basically this pipe is too low. I cut that a little long on purpose. I'll take a couple measurements, trim this pipe down to bring that elbow up and in line, center line to center line with this. Obviously there will be a little piece of pipe moving it over, but for just so I can see where the pipe is going to lie, or at least the elbow, I just shoved it in there for now. But you're getting a better idea of how the exhaust is going to look. I do have a little bit of an angle, whoops, a little bit of an angle to it, so it looks a little cool. It is going to kind of hang down in that position. I just have the pipes taped together just so I can get a better, without tack welding and grinding and ungrinding it. And I just tape it together with some thick tape so that way I can make adjustments. So I'm going to pull the tape apart. I'm going to take some measurements first, pull the tape apart, and then trim this down tube to a better length. And overall, it should look good. I mean, I like it. I mean, from the side, you're kind of like going to see that. It's pretty much straight up and down. But once I'm going to have it ceramic coated, so once it's all like shiny chrome, it should look pretty good. All right, so let me get the trimming. Okay, after a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I ended up having to change around the design of the exhaust a little bit because I forgot, or I didn't realize, most likely didn't realize, I got to take into account for the tire turning when it goes to lock, and basically when the axle articulates. So my original design had the pipe coming down straight, straight to here, or just a little bit of an angle and then under. And that just wasn't going to work because when I put the tire to the locked position all the way in, it would hit the pipe. So that was a non-starter. So I had to go back to the drawing boards. And what I did was I found a piece of conduit, electrical conduit curve that I had, and I cut it so I can get a little bit of an angle right here. So the pipe would kind of come out of the motor and then bend gently to the back. That way I can get it to the muffler. I also I curved it in a little bit because I didn't want it to be sticking out as far as it did when it was straight. So what I've done is I've got the 90 degree here. I'm about to cut the piece that's going to get me over to this elbow. I'll just have to move. I'm just going to move this elbow that direction so it all lines up. And as for this ugly bastard, I'm going to weld this all in real tight, and then I'm just going to blend it and shape it. So hopefully you won't see it as much. You're going to see it. There's nothing I can do. But I'm going to try to make it as least noticeable as possible. And then when we look at it from this direction, sorry about the darkness, my camera kind of stinks, but it kind of almost goes along with the edge of the hood. Actually, that kind of helped. It actually goes along with the edge of the hood a little bit better too, so it doesn't look quite as evasive. I think it's going to look pretty good. I did bring out the front tire that I'm actually going to use, and it does look as if everything's going to clear. So with that, I'm going to make that little piece underneath to connect up to the elbow, and then I am going to hook it up together loosely. And there we go. Got the pipes all tacked together. It's kind of tight in here, I'm sorry. It really doesn't do it justice. It actually looks pretty darn good. Once I grind all the weld, I mean, everything's just tacked together at this point in time, as you can tell. Still have all the witness marks that I had. I'm going to go through and weld everything in and then grind it all smooth. So this will all look like one pipe when I'm done, all the way into the muffler. So all that should be done. Up here, I'll have to get a little bit creative in order to get that to look really nice and smooth, which I will. I'll get it all done, especially up in here where that mates up to the exhaust manifold. But it really does look good, and there's just enough room for the pulley to pass by. So if I have to get the pulley off, I can. And if I take the tire and go all the way to lock, there's a ton of room. And then when you think about your foot, the foot pad will be right here. So with that, there's a ton of room for that exhaust. So you're theoretically, my foot's not going to catch on fire. We got plenty of room for the tire. We can get the pulley off if we need to. And then when we look up here at the hood, there's more than a hand's width of distance between that. So there should be absolutely no issue with the exhaust. I think it's going to work pretty good. So, one key thing I forgot to mention: when you make cuts, the cuts have to be 90 degrees to the side wall. So, like when I'm making this angle cut, if you notice, the cut is basically 90 degrees to this outer side, and then I pick the same side and I cut 90 degrees. So that way, when you put your pipes together, they butt fit pretty tight. And, and I did that everywhere. Did that down here. You can see they're all 90 degrees. This one's 90. All the edges are 90 degrees. Even this one underneath here. So that way it all, there it is right there. So that way it all fits right in nice and neat. Obviously, I'll be filling this in. I'll fill this in. And then we'll get this thing all done. All right, guys. Well, phase 2 of the exhaust is complete. Come on, focus for us. There it is. So phase 2 of the exhaust is done. The muffler is all put together, just needs to be welded, final welded. Same thing with the downpipe. I'm going to get all that done, maybe not today, but over the next couple days. Then I'm going to drop it off to the coater to get ceramic coated. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you soon.